Time for another edition of the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. With you, as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com. Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. We're talking Chiefs football. Is it already a must-win for the Kansas City Chiefs? There's no easy stretch on this schedule. Do they have to beat the Eagles? The Eagles have a mental edge over them, having bombed them in the Super Bowl. And, by the way, the Chiefs not playing well in the first game. What's more concerning for this defense, Saquon Barkley or Jalen Hurts in that Eagles passing game? Can the Chiefs exploit the problems in the Eagles secondary with their depleted wide receiver core? They did get a boost knowing that Xavier Worthy's at least doing something at practice. What kind of impact does Jalen Carter have on this game? You know, he's not going to be suspended, even though he spit on a guy. Chris Jones, Travis Kelce, do they have to have a bounce-back game? How much does the running game mean for the Chiefs? And, of course, we will wrap it up with our predictions. It's coming up right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. Off and running here as we get ready for the Chiefs and Eagles 3:30 game. How about it? Must win already for these Kansas City Chiefs, Jeff. It sounds funny, but it seems kind of the way they played like it's at least a relevant question to pose. What do you think?
Definitely. And first time in the Patrick Mahomes era, we're talking about them having to win a game in week 2 to feel good about where they're going. I don't think just playing well matters here. I think that winning a game, avoiding the possibility of being a 1-3 team. If the Ravens get them, I think they'll beat the Giants, but certainly the Ravens on the other end of that, week 4 is a pretty daunting challenge. That's what we saw in their season opener. So yeah, I think they have to get a win to feel good about themselves, to feel good about what they have with this team. And I think I keep saying that it's important to understand that every year is different. And the lesson I took away from their week 1 experience is that this team is a new team trying to find a new identity with a lot of lore and legacy behind them, but they got to figure some things out fast. And a win in week 2 would make a big difference for them.
Sam, I think all of us would sit here and be like, no, it's like early. There's a team that has experience there. You have championship caliber. We've seen them start slow, get hot. There's all kinds of reasons to say no, but I do think it's a relevant question because I think it feels a little bit different. And the schedule looks more daunting than I can ever remember it looking like. It doesn't look like there's that, well, yeah, that team finished first, but I really don't think they're that good, and so they're going to regress. Would you put this in the must-win category? If not, what category would you put it in?
Yeah, not even close for me. I mean, I think if the Chiefs start 0-2, they're still a playoff team. I mean, Vahe Gregorian wrote today about 0-2 teams and sort of the manner of the magnitude of this game, and he had a stat in there that 16.5% of 0-2 teams make the playoffs. That was higher than I thought it would be, actually. And that's since the 17-game schedule. So that's only been a handful of years. But why wouldn't the Chiefs be more towards that 16.5%, I guess, than the rest of it? I agree with Jeff. Like, they've got a tough schedule. It's not just the Ravens, is that they play the Lions a couple of weeks later. I know the Lions didn't look good in week 1, but I think we'd be fools to make a conclusion about where the Lions are going based on how they looked against the Packers in week 1. Same as we'd be fools to predict where the Chiefs are going purely based on week 1 or week 2. I mean, it's also like this team is not whole on Sunday. It's not the team that they're going to have for the rest of the year on Sunday. So and we'll get to predictions as well, but I guess, I'm anticipating Jeff's going to pick the Eagles. Are we saying this Chiefs season's over once you pick the Eagles? Like,
no more
I'm not saying it's over. I'm saying they've got some problems. I think we can legitimately say they got some problems.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that for sure. Yeah.
I do. I would fall in between you two. I don't think it's a must win, but I think it's a must play good, right? Like, I don't think they can lose and play bad. Like, I think if they lose and play bad, like, what is it? I know Rashee Rice is around the corner, Xavier Worthy's around the corner, and those things, and that will help. But if they lose and play bad, let's back up and say, okay, how did they play bad? Well, probably the offensive line continued to have problems. There's nothing coming to help the offensive line, unless you want to say, well, it's all Juwan Taylor's fault and they're going to put Jalen Moore in, or it's all Kingsley Suamata'ia's fault and they're going to put Jalen Moore in. If they lose and they play bad because they get no pressure on Jalen Hurts, who's coming to help that? If they lose and there's 9 snaps for Christian Fulton, who Steve Spagnuolo pretty much, I mean, you were there. We were at his presser yesterday, Sam.
I asked it, yeah.
Yeah, you asked him about, Christian Fulton, and he was kind of like, well, remember, he missed a lot of time. Didn't sound like, yeah, well, we're still just, like, it was kind of like, yeah, whatever with that guy. Like, I didn't hear like a lot of excitement, like, oh boy, yeah, I can't wait to get him in there. And we didn't really even get to hit him up about, okay, Shamari Connor's your slot guy. He even talked kind of in his answer.
Well,
like,
I did ask him about that too. I asked him about Trent McDuffie playing the slot, and I didn't hear any plans to move Trent McDuffie to the slot.
No, that was the next point. It was like, to your question, he was kind of like, yeah, we'll get him in there a little bit. Like, didn't hear like that's going to, be the fix. I asked Matt Nagy about, what was going on with Travis Kelce, and he gave, basically covered for the player for not running across on the crossing route, basically covered for the player for knocking out his teammate. I mean, if they lose and this team looks disinterested like they did, what's going to suddenly jack them up? If they didn't get jacked up to play a divisional opponent against the Chargers, and they don't get jacked up to play the team that just slapped them in the Super Bowl, what's the game that's going to focus them? I
totally agree with that, Soren. I mean, I think this team is in desperate need of playing with energy. I mean, maybe that's even a lower bar than playing well, but you can't come out flat in this game. Which I will say, Patrick Mahomes was really echoing what I had said on Tuesday when you asked him about playing flat, Soren. He said championship teams don't need good plays to get amped. Like, they bring the energy before things start going well. And this is a game against an opponent in which stuff isn't going to be going well for all 4 quarters, and you've got to keep that energy up. And I still just think it's absurd with a championship team, the team that's been to the Super Bowl 5 times in 6 years, we're even talking about energy. And then I asked guys in the locker room this week about what the energy was like at practice. Jalen Watson told me, he said, energy won't be a problem on Sunday. I guarantee you that. But we'll see, because I think those guys would have guaranteed me that ahead of week 1, because why would it be an issue ahead of that week 1 game? And here you are again. I think the Chiefs catch a break by playing the Eagles, because if you're talking about energy, like, most teams talk all year about wanting to get that game back. The Chiefs have the opportunity 2 weeks into the season to get that game back. Here it is on your schedule. And like you said, Soren, even if you don't win, you've got to at least, I think, show something. And whether that's playing well or whether that's just playing with a lot of life, like, you can't have a game where you come out flat again. You have a repeat of the Super Bowl. Jeff might be more right than I am about it.
Yeah, I to me, I think you're right. Like, the emotion part. If you're not going to get jacked up now, when are you going to get jacked up? And if you don't get fired up for this game, do the Eagles just own the Chiefs, Jeff? Do they just have, lease with an option to buy space in the Chiefs' head if they come out and just get wrecked again by the Eagles? I mean, what part of that equation is here, that the Eagles just are, the better team and the Chiefs know it?
Well, they are the better team. I think you go up and down every unit in this on both teams, and the Chiefs the Eagles have the edge in every category. Maybe the kicker could be a winning thing for them. Except for quarterback.
All right.
Quarterback. So they get one. That's not a quarterback. But yeah, so I think the Eagles come in knowing they're the better team. And if you saw a video of the Eagles playing the Chiefs before they played the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, they talk like they were the better team. Like, we know we're better than this team. Yeah, we know that we have more talent and more stars, and that matters. So yeah, I do think there's a edge for them. I don't think it's substantial because the Chiefs have, a championship pedigree. But, Sam's talking about the energy part of it. I think that part's so overblown. It comes down to coaching. It comes down to guys making plays. Like, energy's part of it. But when you look around their team and you're talking about who's making the plays to create that energy, yeah, you can come out and be rah-rah all you want. But George Karlaftis, who's getting paid more money, has got to get more sacks. Juwan Taylor, who's getting paid $20 million a year, got to be able to not false start, right? You're asking receivers who've never really been difference makers in this league to step up now and be difference makers. You're still playing a guy in the slot who's not good in the slot. I mean, you go up and down the lineup here and poke holes in what the Chiefs are bringing to the table. So I think part of that energy issue is not knowing who's going to make the plays for you. And the Eagles have a lot of guys over there who they know are going to make plays for them. And so, yeah, I do think they have a mental edge in that department.
I'll go a step further to what Jeff said, Sam. I mean, I do think that Travis Kelce is supposed to be one of the leaders. He's been around forever, and he made two critical mistakes. I mean, it's great that he's jumping Juwan Taylor's ass, but it's your job to get out of the way of Xavier Worthy, who was clearly the number one read. I mean, Trent Green said as much with me on Monday. He's like, no, that's Travis. He's got to see where it is. Your number one guy's looking for the ball. You got to get out of his way. And then, I asked Matt Nagy about it was a bad question. I hate when I do this. When you give the guy the out, you lay it out for him instead of just sticking him with the question. And I said, hey, Kelce didn't run across. Pat was, upset. Obviously you could see it on the camera. And then I said, is that one where he's deciding whether to sit down or not? Well, we know that there are, between a zone and a man, there's different ways to attack it. I hated that I left that open for him. And he grabbed it and he ran with it. Oh, yeah, there's a lot going on there. There's nuances and everything. But it's clear Pat's read was run. And it was man, by the way. He had a guy running with him. And so there's no reason for him to do that. So I do think that, can that be cleaned up? Sure it can. But when your 35-year-old multiple champion is kind of disinterested or not focused, why do we think the rest of the team is going to be locked in and going? And what's going on from a coaching standpoint? I mean, I think it's entirely possible the team is just tired. Right? They enter this season tired. They've played a lot of football. I mean, it's got to wear on you at some point. And, the Eagles, the other thing is the Eagles didn't look great against the Cowboys, so maybe they're a little worn out after their run. But I don't know. They don't look focused at all to me. Do they? To you, Sam?
No, I mean, I think that's a real thing. And that's not just a real thing with the Chiefs. That's a real thing historically. I actually tackled some of that subject in a column I wrote today about when the Chiefs lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the 2020 season. The next year I had investigated this, investigated is too strong of a word, but researched this, Super Bowl runner-up jinx thing. And it was a real thing. And then this year, nobody talked about that in the off season. All we asked the guys, and I say a lot of people asked the guys, was about motivation coming from out of the Super Bowl, and to fit that cliche as if losing the Super Bowl is going to somehow give them an edge. That is not the case typically with teams. 12 of the last 27 teams to lose the Super Bowl have not even made the playoffs the following year. The three teams the Chiefs have beaten the Super Bowl, the 49ers twice, they won 6 games each year. They beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl. The Eagles did not win a playoff game. That's 3 teams that they've beaten in the Super Bowl. None of them have won a playoff game. One of the last 52 Super Bowl losers has come back and won it the next year. That is too large of a sample size for me to say, oh, just coincidence. These are good teams theoretically, right? They're the runner-up to the Super Bowl last year for only one of the 52 to win. I think there's something to that. And what it actually prompted me to ask, and for now I think it's just a question to ask, not a conclusion to make, is did this Chiefs off season, as far as just bringing back a lot of their guys who experienced that, was that enough? Should there have been some more new, fresh face in it that didn't experience that maybe has some of the hunger and some of the drive that some of these guys, if you've got new players, they're not thinking about that game. They're not fixating on that game. I know I've gone on for a bit here, but one quick story. I remember I had talked to Kurt Warner after the Chiefs lost to the Bucs and asked him about the Rams. If you remember the Greatest Show on Turf, stunned the world in 99. In 1999, in 2000, and 2001, the Rams had the number one offense in the league in scoring, the number one offense in the league in yardage. They lose the Super Bowl, 14-point favorites to the Patriots. They lose the Super Bowl. The next year, they start 0-5. And I asked Kurt Warner about it, and he said every week we were trying to play the Super Bowl from last year again. And I think that's, again, why I think the Chiefs catch a break by playing the Eagles in week 2. You get to play that game again, and then maybe you can put it behind you after that, because I don't think fixating on that game, and I think some of the fixation is the media is constantly asking these guys about it more than maybe they are perhaps fixating on it, but I just don't think that's a good thing for that to constantly be a topic of conversation.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point for sure. How do they change things up at the wide receiver position? How are they going to try to attack this team? Jalen Carter, we're going to talk about what's the plan for trying to stop him. He's going to line up over Kingsley Suamataia. We'll do it after we hear from our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. All right, how about it with this team? It's we know that we're going to be watching Jalen Carter line up over Kingsley Suamataia a lot. Jeff, do you think that is the focal point of what the Eagles will do in this game?
I'm sure that's part of it. I mean, he's a tremendous talent, and look, they caught a break with him not getting, getting suspended beyond what happened to him losing the game check in week 1. But second team All-Pro, he's a beast. I think there's going to be a lot of double teams sent his way, and really that opens up the possibility of how do you deal with some of the other guys. They're not well-known names, but Nolan Smith is a talented edge rusher. He's got a lot of speed. If you saw some of the reels of him playing in the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, like he put a hit on Trey Smith that looked like Trey Smith ran into a brick wall. And this is a guy who's like 60 pounds lighter than him. They went and got Zadarius Smith, who's an older guy, but a guy who's a veteran pass rusher. They've got some things that they can throw at them. And when you don't have your receiving core attacked, it makes it a lot easier to scheme up pressure and to get opportunities. We'll talk about this later with the run game, but the Chiefs are going to have to be very, very smart about how they try to attack this defense and especially deal with Jalen Carter in that defensive line, because you saw what happened last year. It's not going to be the same crew, probably the same level of result, but I certainly feel like with Jawan Taylor and Kingsley Suamataia and some of the players on the Eagles defensive line that they can still have some issues with that front.
Is Jalen Carter where it all starts, Sam?
Yeah, I guess I would say probably, but when you look back at last year's Super Bowl, he was not great in that game. PFF actually had him as the worst graded player on the field in the Super Bowl. I think it plays more into what Jeff said, which is I know a topic on our list, which is the running game, because I mean, look, Jalen Carter is not great against the run. Typically, I think he fits a little bit of the Chris Jones mold, where I think he's constantly looking to get after the passer, and there's some potentially things you can expose with that. Question is, do the Chiefs have the personnel to expose it?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I do think that it was different players that Jalen Carter was going up against, right? The left side of that offensive line is different this year, so and I would think that he would have something that he would want to prove. I do think that that is a big question, and we'll get to the running game here in a minute. How about Travis Kelce and Chris Jones? Jeff, do the Chiefs win if there's 0 sacks for Chris Jones and a couple of catches for Travis Kelce and just, I mean, they have to play better for the Chiefs to beat the Eagles, don't they?
I feel like when you're playing a team like this, just like when you play the Ravens or the Bills or one of those really upper echelon teams, your stars have to play at a high level because those team stars are most likely to play at a high level. And so, I don't see any way they win this game without Chris Jones and Travis Kelce doing a lot better than what they showed against the Chargers. And there are legitimate questions about whether that's going to happen. As far as Chris Jones, you're playing a better offensive line. You're playing arguably the best offensive line in football. And can you find opportunities against this group to make plays? I mean, he's gonna be double teamed anyway, but he's gonna have to be great. He's gonna have to be great. And Chelsea, to be honest with you, again, I know he got the touchdown catch. It was a very well designed play, but again, he's going against Zach Bond, the rookie. Jahad Campbell is a really athletic player. Like the middle of the field is going to be hard for him to navigate. And so I don't even know if they have to double cover him or give him extra attention. And so, again, this is the kind of game we're going to find out a lot about what he is and where he's at as a player because, and just going back to the point Sam was talking about with the Rams, like I was around the 49ers at the end of their run. And Sam makes a great point. Like when you've been a dominant team for a long period of time, you begin to feel like we're just going to be dominant because of the guys we got. And the guys we got are always going to make the plays when they have to make the plays. And we've been down this road before and we'll get it back and they'll show up. And at some point that stops. And we'll see if for Travis Kelce, that's the case really tomorrow. I mean, on Sunday.
Yeah. With Xavier Worthy being down and Rashee Rice being suspended, Sam, I mean, can they win this game if Travis Kelce's not a pretty influential player?
Yeah. I mean, I think there is a path to it, but I'm going to double down and extend what Jeff said as far as like when you play these good teams, your star players have to show up. The way the Chiefs are built, their stars have to show up every week because they're paying certain guys at the top of their positional market to where they don't have a ton to spend on the role player guys. And by the way, that's going to change even more drastically a year from now when this 2022 draft class becomes free agents. But George Karlaftis was a virtual no-show against the Chargers. Chris Jones was a virtual no-show against the Chargers. Travis Kelce had a couple of catches, like you said, Soren, but I think you could highlight the plays that cost them just as much as the plays that Travis Kelce enhanced the offense in that game. Like, those are the guys you're paying a lot of money to. I didn't think that Trey Smith was terrific in that game. Like, that's another guy that you paid a lot of money to. Nick Bolton gave up 5 catches 5 times. He was the closest defender to a target. Like, those are the guys you pay this offseason. Those are the guys who are making a ton of money on your roster. Like, you've built this roster to rely on those guys, not just against the big teams, but against everybody. And if those guys don't show up in a game, we see what we saw Friday in Brazil.
Yeah, I would agree. That we talk about the running game right here. I mean, Jeff, we talk about the offensive line. I mean, that's one of the things. I mean, that goes with the running game, but we said it coming in. We said it throughout the offseason, and the first week is bad, right? And that is you've got $28 million cap hit on Jawan Taylor. You made your guard the highest paid guard. Your center's the highest paid center. You got a second-round pick at left guard, and you got a first-round pick at left tackle. There is no excuse for this offensive line not being good, and it sucked, right? Like, Trey Smith graded lower than Kingsley Suamataia on PFF's grades for whatever that's worth. The tackles were at the bottom of the league for all tackles, and even Creed Humphrey was 11th among centers, and he's always 1, 2, or 3 when it comes to the grade. So, like, the offensive line is a huge part of the equation, Jeff. I mean, if they don't come and bring it, then how there's no way to win if they don't have a good day, right? Like, overall, they cannot collectively be as bad as they were against the Chargers.
Yeah, and play calling is a part of that too, how you utilize that offensive line. And, Sam made a great point about the interior offensive line last year. That group could have been the MVP when Joe Thuney was playing inside and Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith were all together because they were able to create a running attack. They became pretty much a running team. They were running like 54% of the time. They get certain stretches of the season. And so you could rely on that. And yeah, there are some I don't want to say concerns, but you just don't have that same reliability now with that group. And part of it is because the backfield is not as reliable as you would want it to be. They got away with Kareem Hunt last year. I mean, he did a great job last year, but they got away with an older running back coming in off the couch and doing what he did. He does not look like the same guy right now. And that's not his fault because he's getting older. Pacheco has a ceiling on him now that we've seen. And so I want to see, how do they dial up the running game? How much do they lean on it? Because they're going to have to lean on it to create some kind of balance or create some kind of off-balance situation for the Eagles. We didn't put Vic Fangio on the rundown here, but he was a big part of what happened back in February. He'll be a big part of what happens on Sunday because, like the really good defensive coordinators in this league, it's not just about the X's and O's. He's able to realize, what does Andy Reid want? How does he think about things? How does Patrick Mahomes think about things? And what do I have to do? What kind of risk can I take to make things hard on them? And so I think that is, again, he knows that run game will be part of it, and I'm sure that they'll be ready to take that away.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead, Sam.
Well, I actually think so. I agree with what you said about Fangio, but I think that conclusion is going to lead him to the opposite, which is he's going to say, go ahead and run the ball.
Yeah.
The Chargers last week played the third most light boxes in the NFL of any team last week. That stunned me that they weren't number one, because third's really high, obviously, but I
want to see who played less. Let's see what that looks
why wouldn't you be number one against this team right now? And even if they don't have the wide receivers that put the fear of God into you, the Eagles secondary, I think, is the only thing that probably has, I think it's the thing that probably has the most questions. They're cornerback 2, cornerback 3, that sort of area. So why wouldn't you give those guys help and just dare the Chiefs to run the ball at you? Because they don't have Joe Thuney at left guard. That wall in the middle there isn't there. And by the way, that's where your running backs run best. I know Pacheco's got speed, but he runs best up the middle. Kareem Hunt runs best up the middle. So for me, if I'm the Eagles, I'm begging the Chiefs to run in this game, because I don't know that the Chiefs running game is good enough to beat somebody. And by the way, if the Chiefs go into this game saying, we ran the ball 10 times last week, we have to run the ball this amount of times for this amount of yards, that's a losing strategy going into the game. Their running game should be setting up their passing game. They need to run the ball more because it helps their passing game, not because their running game didn't get enough yards last week.
Yeah, I think, to be clear, I don't think you, Sam, nor I are saying, let's get to some Marty ball and we want to establish the run and it's all about the run. I think we're all hip to the fact that throwing the ball is the more efficient way to go. So, but you got to do the things it takes. You don't just, tell the offensive lineman to lay down, right? They got to block so that you can throw the ball. There are things you have to do to throw the ball. And the thing that is going on all around the league with the McVays and even with Green Bay, Josh Jacobs, you watch Thursday Night Football. They hammer away with Josh Jacobs. Green Bay wants to throw the ball, and Jordan Love was huge. He throws for almost 300 yards, throws 2 touchdowns. They're big plays come in the passing game, but it's because you have to account for Josh Jacobs coming through, and you really don't. And it shouldn't be. This is an indictment on the offensive line, Jeff, to come back to that part of the equation. We've seen Spencer Wares and Darrell Williams and guys and Damian Williams who go on to do nothing when they leave the Chiefs, be effective as running backs when they didn't have, this kind of investment in the offensive line. So there is no excuse to not be able to run the ball. And there's no excuse for Andy not seeing what Sam's just talking about. They're light in the box. Run the ball. Have some runs in the game plan and not just be RPOs. 3-4 years ago, we heard Eric Eager beating this drum that everything was RPO and they need to get to power running, and they did it a little bit, and it kind of jump-started the offense. This is on the coach. If they can't run the ball, this is an Andy Reid problem.
Yeah. It's the blessing and the curse of having Patrick Mahomes. There are some. If you're Andy Reid, you're always thinking about, how can I set him up? How can I put him in the best position to make the plays? And we all know he's the key to everything the Chiefs want to do, not just offensively, but as a team. And so, but he has been able to get away without having to resort to other options. Last year, he had to do it. He was forced to do it last year, and it worked. And they got through it. And people didn't like the idea of close games and coming down the wire, but Bakers can't be choosers. And I agree. When they came out in the Super Bowl and they threw 11 straight passes, I looked the guy next to me and said, they're going to lose this game because you're not going to do this against the Eagles. And so, yeah, I think now they're in a place where diminished receiving core, defense, by the way, we'll get to that. Defense is a big issue. So you got to protect your defense now. Controlling the football means more. So I do think that if they're not trying to really establish the run, whether it's set up the pass or do other things, then they're making a huge mistake.
It's hard for the run and pass for me to gel as much when you're so consistently in shotgun. And look, a lot of teams in the league now are so consistently in shotgun. The Chiefs last week 5 times got under center. Well, those were the short yardage plays where they did run the ball. It wasn't, 1st and 10 under center. And I looked into this a bit this week, that the teams that were under center the most were the Rams, McVay, the Bears, Johnson, Detroit, still the Johnson spinoff, and San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan. Like, to me, that's the similarity in those offenses, is that when you pass under center, it's more effective because the run becomes more in play when you're lining up under center. And I think it would be particularly more in play for a team that doesn't do it as much. I think a lot of defenses, when they see the Chiefs line up under center, would be even more expectant of a pass than you would against a McVay team, a Shanahan team, a Ben Johnson team.
I think, you mentioned those teams, and those are the teams that I look at, and those are the teams that I see guys high school wide open, right? I mean, like the part that's concerning to me is that, you talk about throwing into the tight windows, Sam. We've talked about that with Patrick, and he hasn't wanted to do it. So if it was throw into a tight window or jump out of the pocket, run around and try to create open, he'd jump out of the pocket, try to create open. And it's worked, and it's worked well. We know as he gets older and loses his legs, he's going to have to make more of those tight window throws. But to me, the bubble screens shock no one. They're coming for it. Like, Mahomes is having to hurry that pass because they see it. They're after it. It used to be, and I don't know if I said this last Tuesday or I said it on the radio show. I apologize if I'm repeating it here on the podcast. But it used to be when Alex Smith had no receivers, when he had a season where there was no wide receiver catch a touchdown, there would still be 3 or 4 times during the game that Travis Kelce was running high school wide open. Andy Reid was scheming something that got him wide open. We're not seeing that, but I do see it on other teams. We saw it last night with the Packers, right? When you look at the teams that, the plays aren't anything new, that they commit to the run, they run it well, they sell the run, and then that opens up the passing game, and they get the big plays. And we're just not seeing that. Everything is so hard for the Chiefs. Every play is a grinder, and none of them are easy. And even the deep shots are just like, well, we're going to do it because we said we're going to do it, not because the guy's wide open. We still kind of need the guy to make a big play to come down with it. Not it's not DeMarcus Robinson running wide open at the back of something with no one around him. They did eventually get Hollywood Brown. I guess, to be fair, he was wide open, but that was off a busted play where Patrick Mahomes was running for his life.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some things that coincide with that, which is it's hard to get guys open when you're throwing the ball in 2 seconds. Like, you're anticipating that guys aren't going to be open, that you're trying to get the yards after the catch rather than through the air. And the Chiefs last week, for all of this talk about throwing the ball deep, they threw more quick throws, under 2.5 seconds, more quick throws than any team in the NFL last week. They threw more quick throws than any time Patrick Mahomes had been quarterback since 2022, week 10 of 2022. All this talk about downfield throws, all it did was replace their intermediate game. It didn't actually replace them throwing all these short, quick throws. You throw 25 short throws in a game in under 2.5 seconds, those guys aren't going to be wide open. The intention of that isn't to have them be wide open. It's to create something to where they've got space to run after the catch. So I'm not saying they can't scheme guys open. I think they can, but I think they've got to give themselves more of a chance to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I would say, and I referenced the Cooper Kupp interview in our last podcast. We were talking about how much defenses have changed. The one part I didn't get to it that he said that was also very interesting. He said that defenses have gone from covering space to covering people. And so it used to be when you ran offense that, okay, we know this, here are the rules that the cornerback has to do on this play, or the outside linebacker or the safety, they got to get to this spot to drop. So we know if we get to a different spot, we're going to have a guy open. And now it's like you have to beat people. And that's what I'm saying about the Chiefs. is that when you have to go against better defenders and you're bringing lesser talent, it gets a lot harder. And so I think that's part of this as well, that they're just seeing teams that are just, and when you run the football, you're forcing teams to have to make decisions, right? You're putting people in conflict. Whereas if you just have better talent than other people, like they had in the past, hey, we got Tyreek Hill. He runs a fucking 4.24. He runs a 4.240. He's going to fly by you. We got Travis Kelce. He's a great talent, freak of nature talent. He's going to dominate you in the middle of the field. Once those guys disappear, you're relying on lesser talent, it gets harder.
Well, I think it's clear what they haven't acknowledged is these defenses are designed to stop them.
Yep.
Right? What they do.
Yep.
They need to do something different, and it's the teams that are doing something different. Predominantly, as Sam said, quarterback under center, more of a power run game, and then play action off that, bootleg off that. Those are the things that are being effective, and they to me right now have not adjusted. We especially not in week one, and maybe Andy's got a big gotcha moment coming here, and he held back and thought we could do it the old way against the Chargers, and now the new stuff comes against this Eagles team where we need it. We'll see, right, on Sunday. We'll take a quick break here. We'll get to some of the things that have to happen on defense after you hear from Kansas City's number one accident lawyers, Northland Injury Law. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's number one accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. All right, let's touch a little bit on the defensive side of things, Jeff. Saquon Barkley or Jalen Hurts in the passing attack, which is more important for the Chiefs to stop? They did a pretty good job against Saquon Barkley in the Super Bowl, and they got housed. So is it different this time around?
I think you have to start with Saquon Barkley. I mean, he's their best offensive player, and if he gets it going, then everything falls apart. So it's not an ideal situation for Steve Spagnuolo and those guys, but given the way you played against the Chargers, you have to take something away from this team. And so you might as well start with their best option, which is Saquon behind that big offensive line. And you saw the way they used Saquon. So, Sam mentioned it. Nick Bolton gave up 5 catches in his first game. I guarantee you, and they were splitting Saquon Barkley out wide and throwing the football. I guarantee you that's going to be part of their game plan in this as well. Now, the tough part is once you start really focusing on him, other things open up, like we saw back in February. But I think if I'm picking my poison, it starts with 26.
Okay. How about you, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I'll sound like the idiot on the podcast, but I didn't think the Eagles' offense was the reason they won the game in the Super Bowl. I didn't think that the offense tore them apart the way that the 40 points on the scoreboard seems. You had a pick 6, you had another pick that put them in easy territory to score another touchdown. The Eagles were under 5 yards per play in the game. They were 3 for 12 on third downs in the game. I don't think Steve Spagnuolo, this is all to say, I don't think Steve Spagnuolo should tear up that game plan, because he was one of the only defensive coordinators last year to find an answer for Saquon Barkley. And to Jeff's point, I still think that's where it all starts. And if I'm looking at that team, I'm still saying that's the guy who has the most ability to beat me. And that's the guy I'm going to try and take away from. This is why the Eagles are a good team, is because when you take something away, they still kind of have another way to beat you. This is why the Eagles are the defending Super Bowl champions, is because it's really hard to take away everything. And like I said, I think that the Chiefs defense was okay in that game. I don't think they were atrocious in that game, and the Eagles were still up, 30 some points in the third quarter.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the defense kept having to come back out on the field, and they finally wore down
Yeah.
in the second half. But most of the damage that the Eagles offense did came in the second half after the defense had been out there all day. But that being said, I mean, the Eagles will adjust, right? I mean, the secondary did not look good. Jeff, I asked Steve Spagnuolo yesterday about, look, it looked like you were set to play run, and they threw on every down. It was just throw, throw, throw. And he's like, oh, you can't, you might have something there. So it does look like, against the Chargers, they expected run, they didn't get run, and they didn't really have an adjustment for it. Will the Eagles take a page out of that and say, look, that secondary is porous, and we can throw, throw, throw. And they did take away Saquon Barkley, so let's be ready to do it. How do you think the Eagles will attack the defense?
Oh, I think both will be in play. I don't think they have to. I don't say resort to what the Chargers did. They had a great game plan, but I think this team is certainly way more equipped to do different things. And so, if they're taking away Saquon Barkley, I think they feel very comfortable throwing the football to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and the other guys. I don't know if Dallas Goedert's going to be okay. I know he had a knee injury, and Barkley in the passing game as well, or Jalen Hurts using his legs. And so that is really, you're talking about a team that up and down their offensive lineup is better than the Chargers everywhere, including quarterback. So I can't say that confidently about that group. And so, yeah, I think they'll try to establish Barkley. And if they're leaving their cornerbacks out on islands, as good as Trent McDuffie is, big receivers give him problems. And so A.J. Brown could be problematic. The other guys, Devontae Smith is a great receiver. I just think they're going to have a ton of opportunities to throw the football down the field. And while I agree, Philadelphia's defense was a big part of that win, the Chiefs' inability to slow down, to stop or stifle the Eagles' offense was just as big of an issue for them. When the Eagles had to make plays in that game down the field, they had no problem making those plays.
A couple of the comments. Thaddeus, IFA Sirianni will blow a couple of decisions. Listen, I'm not a huge Sirianni fan because of his antics, but I don't remember him blowing decisions.
Yeah.
But I like the way you think, Thaddeus. I hope you're right on that. I do like this part. Philly hasn't had to play much from behind. They do get in front and lean on you and use that big offensive line. I think this would be nice for the Chiefs to come out and get a lead. And then this is the one I like. This Kevin says, without Pennell, they will have problems just because they wanted to save money and bring him back later. To your point, Sam, about I agree, it was an effective game plan really in the Super Bowl, but they don't have their best run stuffing defensive lineman. He graded very well against the run for the Cincinnati Bengals in week 1, and they have instead Derek Nottie. And so they, to a degree, have lost one of the key pieces that was part of that game plan, right? Like somebody's going to have to step up and I'm not saying Mike Pennell. We know I'm president of the Mike Pennell fan club, as we've covered a number of times, but it might be a little bit harder just to duplicate what they did last time.
Sure, I agree with that. And I also think it's tougher for the Eagles, right? I mean, they don't have Malachi Becton the way that they did a year ago either. I mean, this is the nature of the NFL. Is teams don't look the same that they did a year ago. But the fact that the Chiefs stopping or slowing Saquon Barkley last year in the Super Bowl absolutely does not guarantee that they're gonna silence him again this year. Like, it was an outlier. He didn't have a great game in the Super Bowl. He was good in almost every other game of the season. But, I think it was Todd's comment there about playing from behind. Yes, this is the team you can least afford to play from behind. I remember that the stat I had last year at the Super Bowl, to where when the Eagles were up by 2 possessions, Saquon Barkley was averaging like over 7 yards a carry. Like, these are situations when the other team's going to be running, specifically that team, and you still can't stop them. Like, when they put all their big personnel on the field, Saquon Barkley's really good. Like, you cannot afford to have 3 and outs or 3 really quick drives to open the game. You want to know why Philly scored 40 points? It's because the Chiefs' offense was terrible in the first half and kept giving the Eagles opportunities and short field opportunities, or in one case, just a touchdown. Like, I think their offense is as big of a factor to how their defense is going to play as the Eagles' offense is.
What personnel do we think we see out of the offense, right? Like, I agree. Getting in front, getting the run going, I think will be important for getting big plays out of the passing game. Do we think we're going to see 2 tight ends, or do you think we're just going to see the same thing? Will there be an adjustment, Jeff, from the Chiefs to try to play a little bit more complimentary football?
Oh, there's going to be an adjustment. There's no question about that. They can't go with what they went through, what they put on the field against the Chargers, and think that's going to get it done. I think there'll probably be more 2 tight ends. I think there'll be more run game. I think they'll probably do more. I don't want to say trickery, but they'll try to find different ways to get the ball to Hollywood Brown and Thornton and Juju. It's just that group is such a unique skill set now to try to scheme up. Like I don't know how it will look, but yeah, I certainly feel like you'll probably see a lot more of Noah Gray, a lot more, even Robert, I'm going to say Robert Tonyan could be a factor in this. I think you're going to have to do some creative stuff. Yeah. So I do think there will be adjustments.
Yeah. Do you think we're going to see the 2 tight ends, Sam?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I would say we ought to, because of like the Chiefs' success with it last year, their lack of success without it in week 1. The Chiefs basically played 4 different personnel groupings last year. When you think about 11, 12, 13 personnel, 21 personnel, like they played basically 4 different groupings last year. The grouping that they had by far the most success with on a per play basis was 12 personnel, 2 tight ends. And that was they had the most rushing success using that personnel, and they had the most passing success using that personnel. They used it a year ago 35% of the time. In week 1, we saw it 20% of the time. That's a pretty precipitous drop. They go from 1 out of every 5 to 1 out of every 3 plays to 1 out of every 5. I think we're going to see more of that 1 out of every 3 play ratio than we saw in the first game. Not because they have to run the ball, not because they have to execute this or that, because it's their best formation. It's their most successful way to pass the ball and run the ball. So why wouldn't they be using it more? Like Noah Gray hasn't gotten worse from what he is as a year ago. Their tight ends had great camps, and they're down the roster. I mean, Noah Gray had a great training camp. Robert Tonyan was great, and Robert Tonyan played 5 snaps in the game. Noah Gray played less than half the snaps, and last year he was at like 58, 59. He's at like 41%. I don't understand taking those guys off the field, given the depletion at wide receiver in particular.
Yeah, it's funny to hear Sam say those numbers. It's the formation or the personnel grouping that they have the best success running the ball, which also seems to be where they have the best success passing the ball. It's funny how that works, right? Like if you can get the one going, it helps the other one. I mean, I do think.
Well, sorry to interrupt. It's the expectation. It's the question that you asked Steve Spagnuolo at this week's press conference. Like when you're expecting run, the pass is much, much easier. When you put 2 tight ends on the field, you conceal what you're doing a lot more. And 4 or 5 years ago, I would not have all been advocating for the Chiefs to put extra tight ends on the field. They don't have the same wide receivers they had 4 and 5 years ago. Like putting Noah Gray on the field over the 4th wide receiver, over like Jason Brownlee or something, is much different than subbing out the guys that they used to have in that spot.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think that, listen, it's why I've said every year one of the topics that we're going to have, as long as Andy Reid is the head coach, is you got to be watching, is he getting old? There's no other way around it. I mean, at some point,
do we phrase it that bluntly?
When I say getting old, we're all getting older, right? Yeah, he is a year older, but like, is he still doing the new things? And that's what I'm watching for. And I said it all off season, that just because eventually Tom Landry wasn't ahead of the curve. Eventually, Bill Belichick wasn't ahead of the curve. Eventually,
Mike Shanahan.
Yeah, all of them. Yep. All of a sudden you're like, well, wait a minute, the things I've always been doing. Well, because you're just doing the things you've always been doing. You're not getting to the new creative stuff. You're not ahead of. You got to ride that wave. You got to, he's a California guy. You got to surf it all the way in, right? You can't just let the wave come under you and you're still sitting out there. And so to me, I do think this is a big game for him to show that he can be a step ahead of Vic Fangio, because I know Vic Fangio is an accomplished defensive coordinator. But there was for a long time, Andy Pants, Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio's bread wasn't buttered off smoking the Chiefs, right? And I can tell you who was it? Was it the Niners he helped out, or was it the Eagles he helped out in the Super
Eagles?
The people I talked to were like, oh, yeah, okay. Great.
Was it the Dolphins in a playoff game maybe against
he was with the Dolphins, and I know the people that I talked to over there were like, okay, great, yeah, bring them on. Let's go. Like he didn't strike fear into the hearts of the Chiefs. So Andy and Matt Nagy better have something this go round. And I think there's some obvious stuff like you can see like what you need to do. Pound.
Yeah, but Soren, you know who else was a written off defensive coordinator? Steve Spagnuolo.
Fact. Yes. Yes.
Can I just, so I agree with you about needing to adjust, but like the reason I'm pointing this out, this was their adjustment. Like the Chiefs didn't play the same offense that they had played in the past. In 2023, they used 11 personnel like 65% of the time. That dropped to 48% last year. This was their way of adjusting and keeping up with the way things that needed to be done based on teams putting more defensive backs on the field than they ever had before. The Chiefs didn't just run out the same offense. They tried to adjust. And that's why I've harped on this for all this week for these two podcasts, is because this was your adjustment that worked best a year ago, and then we didn't see it in week one.
And if you really want to see what you're talking about as far as adjustments, I mean, think about how the Rams played the Eagles in last year's postseason versus how the Chiefs played the Eagles, and what the outcome of that game was. The Rams easily could have won that game.
Yeah.
Because of the way they were playing, the way they operated, the way they attacked that defense. And so, yeah, I do think that the Chiefs need to be taking some notes from other teams. Somebody made that comment just a second ago in the comment section.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. This defense of the Eagles is good, but it wasn't the 85 Bears, right?
Nobody was talking about it that way going into the game, remember?
Right.
They were 28th in pressure rate when that game started.
Yeah. All right, prediction time. What do you got, Jeff? Give me a winner. Give me a score.
I like the Eagles big. Yeah. Not like big like in February big, but I'll take them 31-20.
31-20.
What's the opposite of fury? Where are we at?
That's not a fury. Fury was 40-22. That's fury. This is more realistic, I think.
Was that a shot at me for about unleashing?
No, I'm just saying that this is unleashing something that's the opposite of the fury.
Yeah.
You got to come up with a word for it.
Yeah. The only word you use more is elite.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't even think Soren I think he maybe used it once. We use it more than Soren.
Yeah, I don't think elite's going to be a conversation when it comes to defense this year for some reason. I'm going to take a bold and daring prediction on that one.
Okay. I think you did make that as one of your bold and daring predictions, if I'm not mistaken. At least it came up conversationally. Sam, what do you see in this game?
I have a harder time figuring out how the Chiefs defense is going to stop the Eagles than I do how the Eagles defense is going to stop the Chiefs. So that leads me to pick the Eagles. I've got 27-20 Eagles. I just think there's too many things the Eagles can do offensively that can beat a Chiefs defense that I still think is figuring some things out. I think this is a Chiefs defense that'll be better later in the year than it is right now, but the Eagles get to play them right now. And the Chiefs offense will be better because of personnel later in the year than it is right now, but the Eagles get to play them right now. I just think there's a lot of trends in this game that are pointing towards the Eagles.
By the way, this is great. Thaddeus came up with it. Unleash
There you go. Yeah.
I love it. All right. Look, are the Cowboys good or not? Right? Like the Cowboys weren't supposed to be any good, and the Eagles ended up rolling around in the mud with them all night. Right now, I think the Cowboys are better than people were giving them credit for. I think Brian Schottenheimer is a solid coach. I don't know if he's going to be a great coach. Probably no one can be great with Jerry Jones messing around with everything that he does. But I do think that the Eagles were shown that they've got some issues. And
sure,
I believe Andy Reid, Matt Nagy, Steve Spagnuolo, I think these are smart coaches. I think they're high caliber. I think they're going to have something for them. And just because what would the world be if all three of us went to get picked against the Chiefs, right? And so I actually do see
you.
Yeah, I know.
Whoever keeps our scoreboard needs to see when the last time you picked against them was.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while, and it's not this week. Patrick Mahomes is an underdog, is an auto bet for me. I will bet the Chiefs as they're catching a point. That's kind of bounced around between them being favored or not favored. I do think it's a big game. I think it's going to define what they are. If they win this game, they're still one of the elite teams. If not, they're a team that you don't want to face in the playoffs, but they're not going to be one of the elite teams. I mean, they're at home. The Eagles changed out a lot of defensive personnel. there's no reason for the Chiefs to not take advantage of it. There's no reason for them to not come in flying around with their hair on fire and be emotional and play at a high level. So I will say that they get it done. I will take the Chiefs 24-23. Right, just by 1 point. That's like, me picking the other side in a landslide. There will be no fury unleashed, but I do think that they will get back to doing some of the things that are more effective for them.
It is not crazy to pick the Chiefs to win. No.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. It's not crazy to pick them to lose either. The way they've played here of late. I will certainly acknowledge that as well. Listen, you can support the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast by supporting our great sponsors like Gann Asphalt and Concrete. No commissions, in-house crews, free consultations. Every project comes with a written warranty. Gann helps keep your parking lot safer, helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. That's GannAsphalt.com. One contractor, all things parking lot, and of course our friends at Northland Injury Law. Serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, 5-star rated on Google. That's Northland Injury Law. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-HURT. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.